Greetings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Teresa Denise, and welcome to Wellness. So, listen, this has been something that I get a lot of questions about when it comes to personal styles of wellness and understanding self as it relates to the life task and goals and purpose and all that fun stuff. So, I thought I'd come and share this quick video to just outline some of these general insights against and with the differences and similarities, as well as the uses of astrology, astronomy, and psychology. Yes, I'm going to try to keep my biases out of it, but this is also my channel. So if you don't like it, then you can leave a comment and inquire, and we can totally have a conversation, or you can just choose to not agree, which is okay as well. So, astrology, astronomy, and psychology. What's the difference? What's the big hoopla about it? What does it matter? What are we going to do if one doesn't agree with the other, that doesn't agree with the self? Where does all this even come from? I may not go that deep into all of it in this video, but if you do want to know a little bit more about it, you can always feel free to leave a comment in the section below, and we can definitely have more conversations about it. So today I am going to talk about or attempt to define the differences of astronomy, astrology, and psychology, as well as talk about some of the similarities and differences that are within those practices or aspects or insights, and then talk a little bit about how it can be useful for our needs within wellness overall. Okay, so first, let's define astrology, right? So astrology is defined as the study of movement of positions, the study of movement and positions of celestial bodies that influence our natural world, as well as our physical body. With astrology, this is not a scientifically supported practice, view, or aspect. And this astrology and astronomy have had beef since the beginning of looking up. Okay. So when it comes to astrology, we're defining it based on celestial um, uh, beings or celestial events or celestial aspects. And celestial is anything pertaining to the heavenly or sky, right? Which are planets, stars, um, galaxies, anything that's above us as we go outside and we look up towards the sky. That is celestial. So when it comes to understanding how this is impactful to the scientific world, it differs in how we study and understand and organize the 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 movement or the awareness of what it means to be celestial, right? One is maybe more anecdotal or topical to the human experience, while another has more facts and figures, numbers, shapes, laws behind it in terms of its awareness. But we'll get to that soon. Looking at astrology, the celestial awareness is something that is supremely good or sublime. And in historical or traditional or olden times, right? We're talking way, way back in the day. Good things come from the sky. And so if we look up and we see celestial events happening before we're able to organize them into scientific laws and facts, we just believe them to be true for the impact of how it brought us to a feeling, or maybe created a certain event, or maybe it was during a certain time of year that we would encounter or engage or observe with our natural eye this celestial being, and we use that within our human existence of the time to then behave or perform or understand what was necessary for that particular time or that particular energy or that particular space, specifically environmental space. So for instance, if we were farmers, we oftentimes would use the celestial events to understand when is it time to hold them, when is it time to fold them, right? So an example of this is the sun, right? And the impact that it has on the earth and humans or creatures of the earth, because what do? We absorb the sun's rays, and the sun's rays provide goodness, right? So that's just a simple example of the astrology and some of the things that may be relatable within astrology, i.e., the sun, right? It's a huge planet or a huge star in the sky. The moon, which is very controversial, right, to astrology, astronomy, and psychology, because the moon was known to have a great impact not only on Earth and its rotation, as you know, some may argue about it, but it also the creatures, right? I speak to a lot of different health professionals, and when it's a full moon, their stories are epic, right? From some of the human behavior that they observe or that they're a part of within their roles. So planets like Mars or Mercury, or looking at star alignments like Orion's belt or the North Star, has really been supportive in the field or the study of astrology as it relates to awareness, right? And that we will pause and kind of take a look at in a moment as well. So when it comes to astronomy, astronomy is defined as the science-based practice of celestial bodies, space, and the physical universe, or the universe as a whole. So this looks at the specific activities as it relates to physics and chemistry and math, and understanding the phenomenon that is the universe. And so we're looking at laws of motion, we're looking at gravity, we're looking at formation and evolution and gas and particles and energy, right? Which a lot of these terminologies are used throughout, because in astronomy, they're also looking at celestial bodies, similar to astrology. However, celestial is being used in astronomy as sky, right? Anything that's above us that we can see with our natural and naked eye with the use of some type of telescopic tool is astronomy. But this level, or this difference here that we'll get into a little bit more, is that it's a science-based practice. So that means it has the backing, the evidence, the research to support, as well as the funds to support the use of it as it relates to some of our bigger needs and tools and necessities as we live here on this planet Earth, but also as we seek to understand more of the other planets that are within our galaxy and possibly even other galaxies. So this is studied, this astronomy is studied as a form of prediction, as well as an inquiry to produce or support some type of evidence, right? I don't know why I put evidence in air quotes, because the evidence is tangible, which we'll talk about in a moment. Psychology, right? So psychology is a scientific study, which is ongoing, of the mind and its functioning behaviors. That's it. How we use psychology, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But for right now, as it's defined, it's a scientific study of how we understand the psyche and behavior. Now, there are so many books and literatures and research and, you know, anecdotal things I can get into just from being a clinician for so many years. But it's the psyche, right? Which we've tried to understand, persons have tried to understand for a number of years, centuries, right? Because we're not talking about the brain function, although the brain function is a part of psychology. What we're truly seeking to understand is the psyche, or the mind of psychology, right? And how is that impacting our functioning behavior? Not just walking and talking, although that is an aspect of psychology. It's more about our responses and are automatic or autonomic responses to our world on the inside and to our world on the greater outside as well. So this can be studied in persons, this can be studied in animals, this can be studied in systems, this can be studied in organizations and institutions, but it's applied in a numerous of settings to really get a deeper understanding of what does it mean to have, what's the impact of meaning, what's the impact of awareness, and how do we use this to grow and develop. So what are the similarities here, as we take a look at some of the different definitions? Well, as it relates to one of the more obvious awarenesses is the language that we use that is similar from astronomy and astrology specifically. And as I was saying, that's the celestial body. Celestial is anything up, right? In the times of the ancient Greeks and Romans and those of Kemet, all good came from the sky, right? So both study the sky, and the long history of this practice has been used as using sky observations to predict certain events, or maybe not predict, like I know that by 30 days, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. It's give or take a few, but it may be something like in this season, or when I'm able to see the North Star from this aspect of the world, I know that I'm probably around this type of people or this type of food, or maybe this body of water, versus if I'm not able to see it, then I'm probably on this part of the world. So it can help us in understanding how seasons change. It can help us in understanding how weather patterns change, and the other aspects of astronomy, astrology, and now psychology, as we throw that into the similarity, is understanding human behavior. So similarly, how I was expressing about, so for instance, if you ask any nurse or any ED doctor, emergency room doctor, what their shift was like on a full moon, they'll probably tell you all types of things, right? Because it's this idea that when it's a full moon, human behavior becomes very erratic. This is because astronomically, or in the science of astronomy, there's a huge gravitational pull, and thus astrologically, in the study of astrology, because we hold so much water in our bodies, and based on maybe your time of birth, your day, your month, where you were when you were born, that's also going to have an impact on your behaviors, right? So these three things can actually work really together, but we choose, maybe as a society in our traditional past, to keep them separate so that there's not much overlay. But I think being able to bring them together can really support this current mode of consciousness that can be really supportive in us being able to understand the bigger picture of things. So when it comes to general psychology, as it relates to astronomy and astrology, we're taking a look at behavioral patterns, personality traits, and general human affairs. Now, this kind of also leads me into the conversation of the blending of astrology and psychology, which I'm starting to see more of. I got into the practice of astrology before I even knew I was into the practice of astrology. I was around 12 years old. And it was actually a little sooner than that, but when I became more like active in it, I was around 12 years old. And that was when I had my first tarot deck. And it was like a no-no in my house, right? So I had to keep it very hidden. So there wasn't a lot of language around understanding the human behavior, understanding the world around me, or like the stars and the moons and things like that. I really had to do some investigative work, which at the time we had encyclopedias. So there wasn't any internet for me to just Google, can you tell me about this? But it was really helpful because I was able to understand that there are certain traits, traditions, norms, and patterns that are found in tarot and oracle and things like that, that people have studied for a very long time in the field of psychology, even before it was psychology. But more so in the modern practices, we look at astropsychology. I don't even know if that's truly a word, but we can look at Carl Jung, who was a psychologist that studied with Freud for a little bit of time, but he had a lot of differences from Freud, and I really am thankful for it because Jung did not believe in tabula rasa, which Freud did, and that's like being a blank slate. Freud believed that we came like empty with nothing, a white clean slate, and then we had to build on that. And as a Black woman, it's like that's dangerous, right? Because people have this idea and concept about what that building block looks like, depending on your environment and things like that. And so it's really good to have this type of contrast and variety. So with Jung, Jung took a look at archetypes, right? And archetypes are it comes from this two separate words, right? Arche, which is beginning, and type, which is like order or form. And so Jung believed that we have this predisposed form that is with us in the beginning. And then based on the continual practice of this, we develop our personalities, we develop our types of behavior or our types of responses to our environment, which is a behavior, or our types of thought patterns based on our beginning form, right? We're not blank. We don't come here with nothing. We have a beginning form, and then that builds or that shapes based on our experiences. So as it relates to astrology, astronomy, and psychology, and how that aspect is very similar here, we're taking a look at, some really important moments of astrology that I'll talk about in a moment when it comes to the different cultural traditions of how we view astrology and how that plays a role in our psyche or our development of our self, right? That is the whole goal. Even when it comes to the differences of astronomy and astrology, the major differences, astronomy looks to observe, astrology looks to define, and psychology seeks to change. Come at me if you want, right? These are my opinions. These are my opinions, and I could be wrong, I could be right, I could be somewhere in the middle, or this could just be what have you, right? However, what I think is really important to address about these different maybe hierarchies or similarities that we can see within astrology, astronomy, and psychology is this idea of the archetype and our overall mission here on Earth, right? If this is where we want to find purpose, this is where we start to understand the impact of wellness within all of them, right? Astronomy is really cool because, understanding the practice of astronomy can save us from solar flares, right? Or the mass destruction of Earth, maybe. And understanding astrology can support us in knowing like Tuesdays are just not good days for me, perhaps, right? Based on my zodiac and what else I follow. But the psychology can say, okay, I've observed these certain patterns or I've observed these certain traits about myself, and I know that XYZ is not okay and WPX is fine, right? We also, at some point, I think I'll probably do a video here in talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because I think there's a lot of contrast with how we understand psychology and astrology together as it relates to self-actualization of needs. Maslow says our basic needs are down here at the bottom, and then we have to eventually elevate or rise or practice or study or organize ourselves to get to self-actualization. And I think culturally that's incorrect. I actually think that we start from self-actualization and then everything else becomes an umbrella to who we are, which I think blends a lot more appropriately in with Jung. So the major difference is the scientific study and evidence of, right? When it comes to astrology, astronomy, and psychology, it's the study, it's the evidence, it's the proof in the pudding, right? If we have proof, then it's scientific, it's real, it's tangible, we're good to go. If there's no proof, if we're just going off of basic energy and beliefs, no, it's pseudoscience, right? Which I know I don't particularly believe, because there are tons of things that we can't see. We can't see the mind. We can maybe see causations of it, or we can see responses of it based on whatever's happening around us, but we can't see it. The brain is not the mind, you know. And I didn't say it. Siegel said it. Dan Siegel said it. Okay, go for him, not me, not Dr. Moore. Dr. Siegel said it. But the scientific study and the evidence is what creates the major difference, right? So in astronomy, we have laws of physics, we have atmospheric studies to determine some validity of some, planetary movement, and astronomy just seeks to observe and study the celestial bodies. They don't make any meaning of it. They don't say, oh, well, because this thing happened and that thing happened, then it's going to impact the dynamic of the human psyche or the behaviors. That nope, they don't care. Watch out for the gamma rays, right? Like that's it. And hopefully we are using astrology to really support, astronomy to really support us in longevity as a human collective, right? So if we have cleaner air based off of some of our behaviors, then we're not screwing up our atmospheric what have you, and then we have a longer time on this planet. That's astronomy. Astrology is it seeks to make meaning of the celestial bodies. So right now, it's a growing conversation when things are in retrograde, right? Or when there's a full moon, or when there's a super moon, or whatever, what have you. We take a look at our three big signs, right? Our sun, our moon, our rising, our Venus, and our Mercury, to truly understand, like, what's happening with me that is being impacted by the celestial bodies, that's being impacted by all the things above. And psychology, I'll say it again, traditionally seeks to fix or characterize the psyche and its impact to our behaviors. Even when we look at traditional psychology, Western psychology, even if we look at the alternatives to traditional psychology, we're still looking at the anti of the traditional psychology. We're not creating a new space. We're not developing a new meaning structure that is culturally appropriate, that is really helpful, right? We're just adding on or taking away from something that already exists, which is what astrology, astronomy, and psychology is when they're all put together. They're spectrums, right? On the same system that we can use for our benefit, or we can just observe. So psychology, I would say, is highly westernized, and it's not always culturally inclusive, just as much as research will show that the typical study group, right, is a very small aspect of the larger group, and it's often based and particularly biased on that group or norm. So this is what makes the astrology that much different, is because it's not based on any group norm as much as it can be based very, very specifically on your wellness individually, right? So I'm going to get into some of the uses of astronomy, astrology, and psychology, and talk a little bit about their uses, the usefulness for wellness overall. Ooh, that was tough. So, astronomy. Astronomy is used, to understand the universe, what's happening with the stars, the sun, the moon, the planets. It can be really helpful for scientists who seek to have awareness around any disaster that may occur on a cosmic level, as well as our earthly level, because there may be meteoroids that are coming into our atmosphere that can really create some damage. And there has been huge advances in technology to reduce the impact, right? However, when it comes to astronomy, it is very, very exclusive. You have to go to school a lot, which is nothing wrong with school, okay? But you have to have some type of skill in mathematics and physics and science and chemistry even, right, to fully understand and develop it. So although it's really helpful, and I'm really thankful for the beautiful astronomers that assist us in our day-to-day, it is an exclusive club because you have to receive that information from someone else to be able to apply it to yourself. But the information that we have can be really helpful, right? Like learning about a supernova. It's really cool to understand that, it's a powerful explosion about a star's life cycle before it dies and perhaps turns into a black hole that will maybe eventually one day cover us all, and then we become nothing and everything all at once. Or we can take a look at gamma ray bursts, with they're just like intense energetic explosions that may or may not allow us to understand what other galaxies are out there. Mm-hmm. Right? But you have to like really, I mean, and you don't necessarily have to go to school to learn these things or to have insight towards these things, but that's the outside coming in. With psychology, I'll go to that side. Again, it's a practice that it seeks to understand human behavior, how we can change, how we can be influenced, our relationships between the brain and the body. But again, when it comes to the practice of psychology, again, a lot of school, math, reading, understanding research, laws, ethics, codes. It's again very exclusive. There's not many who are in the field of psychology, clinical psychology, who are licensed, practiced, independent, and taking all those hours and classes and spending all that time researching and doing all the things to become the experts in the field of behavior, right? And this is not to shade or shame, okay? I am Dr. T, right? Like I have gone to school. I do understand the interest and the impact of these skills. But when it comes to an individual wanting to seek for themselves, astronomy and astrology are both very external for the internal world, right? It can support us in understanding the internal world, but they're very outside of us. Astrology is really helpful when we take the time to learn because we can do it on our own. We don't need to go to an observatory to see the smallest planet, 85 million light years away. We can meditate and we can, call upon our look at our birth charts and get an insight of like, how can I do what I need to do for me? Because psychology, right? We don't have to find a health plan that covers the charge of sitting for 60 minutes, 45 to 60 minutes, and having someone sit us down on the couch and say, tell me how you feel, right? We can go to our birth charts or we can kind of take a look at what are some of the traits, what are some of the common symbols, what are some of the archetypes that are common within this sign or this day or this month or this year that can really support us in understanding our mission, our purpose, our pride, our self. And so I do want to talk a little bit about astrology as a form of divination to support the individual and understanding their course of life, because there are different types of astrology that's available for everyone depending on their cultural beliefs, habits, norms, traits. So the types of astrology charts, these are just the ones that are I would say, the most popular from what I see on this side of my world. And so if I've missed anything or if I've misspoken about anything, that is not my intention. I am here to learn and to be open for a conversation and a dialogue. So if you have any insights or inquiries or questions or what have you, please feel free to leave them down below. So synasty, right? Synasty is love and relationships. Why? Because as human beings, we seek to be connected, right? We seek to have relation, right? When people say, well, I came in this world alone, I'm going to die alone. I cannot stand that because you are not alone. I can't stand it because I have 3 children and I distinctly remember when I was giving birth to them, I was with them. So they were not alone. Okay. And I get what people are saying in that essence, but stop saying it because it's incorrect, it's improper, and it only hurts you in the long run. So synasty looks at love and relationships. It doesn't have to be love like intimate partnerships, sexual type of love. It can be friendships. It can be community partners. It could be the dynamic of like, is this the right job for me? Right? Vedic, or it comes from the Hindu astrology, and this is not about the 12 constellations like the Western astrology is. This is calibrated more towards the constellation. So this is where astronomy and astrology truly meet because it's taking a look at the observable stars and celestial bodies as it relates to the self. The natal chart is the typical birth chart, and that's where it's looking at the past life, the dreams, what types of planets that are impacting you. It looks at the houses, so each planet is represented by a different house, and not just our planets of our solar system, but also some of the other celestial bodies like Vesta, oh my gosh, what's it called? I can't think of it. I'll probably put it somewhere so you all can understand. Chiron, the wounded warrior, just a lot of different things. It also takes a look at our north nodes and our south nodes, which can be really impactful to understanding like what we just came from in our past life, and where we're going in this life and beyond, right? The significance of these celestial moments is really to support our purposeness, our perhaps even predictions to impact our behaviors, and essentially support us in healthy conscious thought as we move about in our current world and reality. The assistive tool for meaning can really be found in our natal charts because it allows us to see our big 3: the sun, the moon, our rising, and then the additional 2: Venus and Mercury. But also taking a look and understanding your birth chart can be assistive in understanding the impact of full moons and tides and just different things that happen. So lastly, I want to take a look at some of the ways in which we can use astronomy, astrology, and psychology for our overall wellness. When it comes to astronomy, it's been studied, and there are some articles that I read sometime during 2020 where it spoke a lot about the impact and the benefit of stargazing and sun gazing and moon bathing, which is also something that's done a lot in astronomy, or excuse me, astrology, because it has some scientific evidence into um, what looking at the stars the type of impact it can have on the human psyche, and just that feeling of connectedness to something bigger than ourselves. Also, the impact of not being able to stargaze, to moon bathe, to sun gaze, when our atmospheric pollutants are too high. And so, if that is the case, astronomy can also, with its beautiful study of physics and chemistry and math and all that fun stuff, can really support us in understanding how to reduce gas emissions or how to really just preserve the atmosphere so that we have decreases in pollution and increase in visibility, right? So we feel good about being able to see the stars and the sky. When it comes to astrology, astrology can really assist us. So when you take a look at like those physical birth charts and different things like that, it can really be supportive in allowing us to understand the practice of our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health. So this is where the astrology and psychology really play a role in one another's factors and influences. Certain practices such as energy work, being able to recognize that, okay, if I'm an Aries, I need to work with my Aries energy. And if it comes to, let's say, working out, I maybe need to do like high intensity workouts because as an Aries, I have fiery, passionate energy, right? Versus a Gemini, high intensity workouts may not serve me well. I can probably do it because I'm a dual sign, but I don't really like it. And what I really need to focus on is breath work. I need to get in control of this and that, right? So they're together. So being able to understand it from that aspect. And then lastly, in psychology, we have the beautiful support of those of us who have trained and been skilled in certain theoretical orientations to really understand the historical and researched evidence of what we know to be certain aspects of human behavior, just based off those research methodologies. I don't believe that we have uncracked the code. And so there's like one book that can define everything. That's just me. But being able to use psychology for wellness, of counseling and diagnoses, of of even being able to infuse traditional beliefs and rituals and even faith-based work. So that's where the tarot, that's where the oracle, the Reiki, the what else, the yoga, the meditation, all of that can be combined as well within the field of psychology. And we can also take a look at wellness from a healthy eating environment, knowing our triggers, knowing what's aligned with us, for our greater good. So overall, I hope that this has been really helpful in understanding the differences, the similarities, and the usefulness between astrology, astronomy, and psychology on this page, as well as my um, um, other social media pages and platforms. I really do try to bring my authentic self, and my authentic self is an enjoyment, a belief, and a practice of all three of these, which is psychology, astrology, and astronomy, because I do believe that having an attunement, an alignment, and understanding of the celestial bodies above us, around us, as well as the celestial body of who we are, is really what supports us in being well. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you want to know more about a specific topic, please do not hesitate to reach out. All of the information that as far as some of the studies and practices, ways to deepen your research and your inquiry can be found in the description box below. And I so look forward to having another Welcome Wednesday with you. And as always, be well. Bye. Doo-doo.